Hello, colleagues who have joined us recently, and thank you all who have been staying with us from the previous talk. It's again Quality Engineering Community Day 2023 that is conducted by Global Testing and Pro Quality communities. We are happy to see all of you with us. And our next speaker is Aritra Majumdar with the topic Need for Independent QA in Data Center Migration Project. Please notice that the session has been recorded, and the recording will be available in a week after the session. And let me mention once again that if you have any thoughts or questions about the topic, please comment in chat section or put your question in the Q&A tab in the top right of the page. And we will announce the questions after the presentation. Hi, Aritra.
Hi.
Let me introduce you. Aritra has been associated with quality engineering and assurance industry for over 17 years, primarily focusing on digital transformations projects across different verticals like BFS, insurance. For last 1 year, Aritra has been working as quality architect in a data center migration project for one of EPAM's customer. As part of the discussion, Aritra will share his experience that can be helpful for other professionals working in similar engagement. Okay, Aritra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. I've started sharing my screen. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, we can see.
Okay, great. So first of all, thanks for joining this session. Like Andre pointed out, today's topic is need of independent QA in data center migration projects. So this is what I have in store for you today. So we'll first understand what is the importance of data center migration, what is the market trend around it, what are the different types of data center migrations that are available. Then we will talk about the challenges. Now there can be various kind of challenges in a data center migration projects. Whatever that I have seen during my tenure in working in a data center migration project, the sort of challenges that can delay the overall program, can lead to customer experience, those I will highlight in this particular area. And then we'll understand the role QA plays in a data center migration project. Finally, we will deep dive into why a separate QA team is needed, focused specifically on data center migration projects, and we'll wrap it up with the best practices that the QA team needs to follow. Okay, so let us understand what is the importance of data center migration project first. So what is data center? When we talk about a data center, it's basically it can be a house, it can be a premise, it can be a facility that store your IT infrastructure. So this infrastructure is responsible for running your business on a day-to-day basis. Okay, it maintains your applications, it stores your data in a secured way, it passes your data across different networks. Now, So, in a nutshell, your data center is the lifeline of your IT infrastructure. Now, why data center migration is required? So, before going into these pointers, let me give you a use case. Okay, uh, one of the leading retail banks in USA, they migrated their data center. That consisted of around 830 odd application of 6,000 plus servers. So, after migration of their infrastructure, what they saw was the speed of delivery improved by 40%. Okay, and the cost of maintaining the direct cost of maintaining the IT infrastructure came down by 60%. So that's the degree of efficiency you are gaining by migrating the data center. And the entire top brass of any enterprise is now focusing on that aspect. Obviously, the managing resource capacity more efficiently, that is one of the key driving factor. Reducing disruption, that is another driving factor. So the guys, whoever is in the industry for a long time, if you remember, when we used to send DSR, daily status report, we used to add a log highlighting the environment outages, right? And other things. In a course of time, that has come down drastically. Okay, and a lot has to do with the way the organizations are nowadays maintaining the data centers. Increasing resource lifespan, obviously, if you're paying for something, you want it to be available for a very longer duration. That's understandable. And the last but not the least is improved security. These are some of the key driving factors why an organization is looking to shift their data center, okay, from one place to another. I'll talk about the types of migration and the data center, and the focus area is that uh, it's like improving your business efficiency. If you look at the market trend of data centers, it is expected to grow by 9.6% on a year and year basis. So that's how big it is. Okay, now what are the different types of migrations that you can have? One is relocation. Relocation means you can have your data center scattered all around different places. You are bringing it under a single location, under a single umbrella. Again, that's with the focus of improving efficiency. Consolidation is, let's assume that you are having a physical server and you feel that it is not cost effective to have a physical server. Maybe a couple of virtual servers can perform the same thing. So that's falls under the consolidation type of migration. Cloud migration, obviously you can shift your entire on-premise data center into cloud. uh, may not be always very cost effective, but you will get the necessary agility with that. So typically organizations where the demand can fluctuate, they are actually going for this kind of adoption. Then obviously you can have the hybrid where a part of the data center remains on premise and the part is on the cloud. So that's the need of data center migration. Now let us look at a typical challenges that you will face in a data center migration project. And again, I have broken it down into three segments, and this is purely from my past experience of working in a data center migration project. First is inadequate discovery. Now, what is inadequate discovery? The first phase of any application migration is understanding the application infrastructure and what are the resources that get impacted by it. What happens when we talk about an IT infrastructure, for example, a storage server or a database server, that can be shared by multiple other applications. If that analysis is not done properly, post migration, it can lead to outages. Okay, and that will directly impact the end users. So the customer experience can get impacted if the discovery is not done properly. Even before that, halfway through, if you find that okay, certain things are have been missed out, that can delay your overall program duration also. Okay, next one is lack of impact analysis. Now, this is interrelated with the inadequate discovery. Okay, when we talk about impact analysis, what kind of problem you can face when you migrate an IT infrastructure associated with a particular application? It is not always everything will move at a single go. Okay, uh, the entire ecosystem doesn't move. Okay, sometimes it moves, but a majority of the cases, what will happen, a part of the, maybe your application servers will move, database servers will move later, then your storage servers may be moving, or your MQ servers will be moving. So it happens in segment. So you need to understand that a proper analysis needs to be done in order to understand the impact of this, phase wise migration. Okay, because from an end user's perspective, they are not really bothered where the data center, but where you are storing the servers, right? So they should not be impacted. Keeping end users in mind, this analysis needs to be done properly. And to be honest, a lot of time we see that, okay, this is not being done. Last but not the least is the post checks. After you do the migration, once the migration is done, one item in the checklist is basically performing a detailed post check. Now, by detailed, it doesn't mean that you run the entire regression suite for 2 days. Sometimes it is required, but in most of the cases, a focused testing needs to be done. Keep in mind one thing, that whenever you are shifting your servers, your application functionality is not changing. It is the infrastructure that changes. So what impact it will have on your application functionality, that needs to be focused on. But what, one of the trends we saw initially was, people were checking just whether the servers are up and running and some basic flows done. Then we are calling off we're saying that the migration is done. That should not happen, because that is leading to defects. Okay, even if the dev server, if you migrate it, and if there is, a post migration you find issues, that is impacting development's productivity, right? So that shouldn't be taken for granted. Not only prod server, even the lower environment migration needs to be looked at very seriously. Okay, otherwise it will have an impact. Okay, so that's the challenge that, some of the challenges we saw, and we'll discuss in subsequent slide how QA can help with mitigating these challenges. But first, let us first understand what exactly QA does from a data center migration perspective. I have broken it down into 3 phases. First is the discovery phase. So what we do is we go and talk with the application team, the application architects. Okay, understand the overall architecture, understand the different checkpoints, what are the jobs that are running, what are the different, what are the different services the application is consuming. These kind of things we focus on, and from that, deliverable from this particular phase will be most of the time the clarification document. Then comes the preparation phase. So based on our understanding, we prepare a verification document. Okay, this verification document, so if you are responsible for doing the testing post the server migration, you will be doing it. Else someone else, if the dev team is doing it, you share the document with them. Okay, there are instances where we have seen that no automation is present. Okay, so during that time, customer may want to trigger the practice of test automation. So you may need to come up with the test automation script. Please note that you should not look to automate the entire application, because most of the time you will be dealing with 100 plus or 200 plus applications. Okay, you cannot automate everything. So focus should be on automating some of the smoke test with the eye on the infrastructural aspect, and then you move on to, you hand over the script to the development team and ask them to leverage it for their future enhancements and other things. So that's one of the deliverables. So the verification document and the automation scripts are the deliverables at this phase. Finally comes the execution phase, where the actual migration is taking place. You participate in that entire journey. If you are supposed to execute the, do the validation post migration, you're doing that. You are executing your automation scripts and learning from different migrations. Okay, that learning is very important, and we will discuss that in the next slide. So these are basically the 3 key phases where a QA team participates and, does their work. Now let us understand, why do we need a dedicated QA team? Okay, first is the infrastructural perspective. And let me give you a very simple example. When we test a particular application, okay, our focus is on the migration aspect. Now we look at how a particular infrastructure after migration can impact the functionality. Okay, for example, you are migrating a resource, a shared resource from one application to another. Okay, now that particular resource may have two applications. One of the servers, now generally what happens, a server gets tagged against a particular application as a primary application. Maybe the QA team from that primary application will be doing the BAU checks. You will be looking at from another aspect also, because there is one more application which is tagged over there. So you need to ensure that application is also working properly. Either you do the testing or you loop in the people necessary for doing the testing. That is the part actually you need to look at. Secondly, you look at the infrastructural aspect. Okay, when I say infrastructural aspect, you look at after you migrate a particular application. Okay, what are the things that will change? One thing that will change for sure is your IP will change. So you got to say to development team, okay, please ensure that there are no hard-coded IPs in your application. That need not be there. Okay. Second, another part is once it is changing, okay, maybe the development team or maybe the existing QA team will look at whether the applications are working fine or not. Your focus area should be slightly different, right? You will look at whether all the load balancers are up and running or not. Okay. So I'll give an example. Let's assume a particular server is moving. That server has one application stack that may be having 10 to 20 applications. You may have almost 30 load balancers or 40 load balancers for them. Your responsibility will be to ensure post migration whether the load balancers are working properly. So it's not only the application should be up and running, your focus area should be different. Okay, that's one thing. Second part is broader knowledge base. Now, this team will be involved in multiple other application migration, right? So, we are basically taking our learnings from other migrations. What are the things that have gone wrong? Okay, the lessons learned from the other migration and use it in a migration of a similar kind. Okay, as a result, what will happen? The chances of finding similar type of issues will reduce. See, when the migration will happen for an application ecosystem for an enterprise, it will be of similar type only. In 90% of the cases I have seen, it's of similar type, whether it is relocation and consolidation together or the cloud migration, or it will have a hybrid migration. So there is a commonality in the issue pattern. I'll give you a very simple example. Okay, one common mistake that happens post migration is that all the necessary firewalls are not open. As a result, maybe the initial location you are accessing a shared path, picking up a particular file and processing it. Once you go to the new location, that firewall needs to be opened. Otherwise, you will not be able to access that path. So you need to keep a check in order to ensure that okay, that firewall is open and the users are able to access that particular location, pick up the file. It may be a user manually accessing it, or maybe a listener picks up the file from a particular location, but the firewall needs to be open. That is a learning from a different migration which we can use. So that's why the knowledge base is very important. The third point is a dedicated team focusing only on migration. If you have an application team, they are involved in a weekly, bi-weekly, or maybe a monthly release or a quarterly release. Their focus areas are different. Here we are talking about a team which is just trying to ensure post-migration your application works properly. So as a result, the focus is entirely on the migration. Okay, and if you club it with the above 2 points, you can understand this team, which is focused on migration, will be able to give an extra. They will be able to give you better quality, if compared to the existing team. Okay, which will focus on only that particular application validation. Last part is unbiased assessment. Now, this is a very important thing. What we do is basically we are not really bothered about how many defects we are finding in the migration phase. Our responsibility is to stop the defects post migration. So what we do is we prepare the artifacts, send it in advance to the development team. Okay, so that they know also that okay, these are our focus areas. So when the applications are migrating, there are no issues post migration, whether it is dev server, whether it is QA server, and the prod server. Secondly, there is the perception that is associated with the team that okay, they may not be development friendly, they may not be QA friendly, they not be supportive and all those things. There is no backlog at all. We straight away go there, we have our analysis session, we have our discussion session, we deliver the artifacts, then we move out. So these are some of the key factors which have added value, and we believe that having this team, a dedicated team only focused on migration, will help. Now, let's look at some of the best practices. I have broken it down into people, process, technology. So we'll start with the technology one. We should, first of all, we should focus on the infrastructural aspect. Whether the firewalls are open, and whether the shared resources have been discovered properly. What is the impact of that? We need to talk to the development team. We need to talk to the architects to find out the impact, and then from there you prepare the necessary scenarios. That is something, it's a must do for us. Even for the automation scripts, if you are using automation, it should not be like an end-to-end test. Look at post migration, whether the shared locations are accessible or not, whether you are able to check whether the load balancers are up or not. No, very simple test, something that we use for broken links actually can be leveraged over here. Okay, so that's another key aspect that we should look at. Then comes the process part. In process, always do your first round of discussion after the application discovery is done. When you know this particular application have this many number of your Unix server, this many numbers of your database server, okay, once that discovery is done, post that, you initiate the discussion. I'll share one experience that we faced very recently. We looked at the discovery sheet, then we compared it with the overall architecture of the application. We saw that one of the integrating applications are missing from that application sheet. Okay, from the discovery sheet. So this particular, but when you talk about the particular application ecosystem, that is another key application over there. So we immediately reached out to our the infrastructure team, our infrastructure guys, that this thing is missing. Can you take it up? Can you check why it was missing? And we triggered that discussion. And we also ensured that all the key stakeholders are aware of it. At the same time, when we prepared the checklist document, we categorically put a check for that particular application, so that at the end of the day, post migration, the end users are not impacted, even though whether that server details are in scope of migration, whether they will remain on prem. So necessary impact analysis can be done. So that's how you can create the necessary noise and start the discussion, so that people are aware that okay, there may be a problem over there that needs to be looked at. Next part is looking at the checklist. Now, we should always look at lower environment migrations very, very closely. When I say lower environment, I'm talking about dev environment, QA, pre-prod. Okay, because before you go live, before the production server migration happens, you need to ensure that all your details are updated properly. Okay, take it, look at the dev server migration and QA server migration. Look if there are any issues coming from there. Okay, keep a note of it and keep updating that verification document. Okay, your verification document, it should be a live document. Okay, I mean, it should not freeze before production server migration. So that's another from a process perspective. And finally, people perspective, you should have guys who are trained both in automation and in manual. When I say automation, at least they should be knowing the web and web service automation. That's a must-have skill, because that's what we have seen, that these are the sort of work that generally comes. Last but not the least, in an application migration project, in a data center migration project, you will be talking to a lot of people. Okay, maybe a completely separate group of people in a week's time. They will be your clients, right? They will give you the details and everything. So try to find out people who have, if possible, pretty vocal on the call, because as a lead you will not be able to join all the calls. Okay, you may be having conflicting calls, so jumping from one call to another may not be possible always. So try to select a team who are eager to speak, can interact with people, can extract the knowledge. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much about the the need of independent QA about data center migration.
Yeah, Arita, thank you for your presentation. Now let me ask a few questions that I got during the presentation. Comparing to application testing. How is application migration testing different from data center migration testing?
Yeah, Andre. So it's the focus area, Andre, that changes. When you look at only application migration testing, you are looking at the functional aspect of it. But when you look at a data center migration testing, you are trying to find out the impact of infrastructural changes, and then from there you are trying to derive the your validation points. So that's one key difference. Is like the examples which I give. Your firewall needs to be opened, the load balancers checks, looking at the shared infrastructure, and then deriving the impact from there. Those are the things we need to focus on rather than only functional testing.
Yeah, okay. And maybe could you advise some recommendations about what type of test automation framework should be selected for performing data migration testing?
Okay, in terms of framework, it should the framework, first of all, we will not be automating everything, right? We will be automating maybe the smoke test or some selected number of test cases, and handing over the scripts back to the development team. It's better to have a single framework that can support both web and web service automation. Along with that, if you can have something which can expedite scripting, that will help. Okay. Something that will help you in automated script generation, that generally helps, because you will not have a lot of time to do the automation. You need to complete the automation, hand it over to the development team, and then move on to the next set of application. So say for example, in our project we use Collab. Collab is one automation framework which has been developed by the engineers at EPAM. So we are using that one for our automation.
Okay, thank you, Aritra. It was an insightful conversation.
Thank you.
I also want to express our gratitude to our audience for watching and for questions. So if you have any questions after the talk, please feel free to leave them on the agenda page. And once again, I invite you to join us on our social media platforms for more updates and engaging discussions by the links in the chat. And concluding, we extend a warm invitation to you to attend the next talk in a few minutes on the topic, yet another approach to build interaction with REST in Java by Alexander Podolyaka. Now, Aritra, thank you very much.
Thank you.